Welcome back to another episode of Around the W, our show dedicated to the WNBA, to women's basketball. I am your host, Stacey II, joined by, once again, Kaylin McDonough. Kaylin, how you doing today?
I'm good, Stacey. How are you? I'm excited to be back for another episode.
Oh yeah. WNBA season's heating up. We heating up here on SOS. We got some great topics, including the first time ever at the United Center. It was a WNBA game. We're going to share our thoughts on that. But first, we got to talk about the Las Vegas Aces. Interesting things going on with them. Right now, they're currently sitting at 4-3, which is a record most people might not have seen them sitting at. In my opinion, they weren't going to go undefeated to start the year, but 4-3 is like, they're in the middle of the pack offensively and defensively. I think offensively they're ranked about 7th or 8th, and they're 9th defensively. They just lost by, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 29 points to the Golden State Valkyrie, in which I heard Becky Hammond called them out, called them soft. What is going on with this team? I posed this question because we all still see them as a championship caliber team that can go far in the playoffs. And then A'ja Wilson, she's leading them in every major statistical category, having an MVP type of year. But in order for them to keep up with the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty, who I think both are still undefeated, if I'm not mistaken, do they need to make a trade?
I think they do need to make a trade. I think they need to bring someone on that's going to help them out. One person or player that comes into mind is Lee. I don't know if I'm going to say this last name right. I think it's Yuru. She's on the Seattle Storm. She is not very happy about her playing time. And I think that if they were to go and get her, she can really relieve some of that front court duties and potentially help them out defensively, as well as also be an option for A'ja Wilson, because as good as A'ja Wilson is, I just think that if she's not having a good night, the Las Vegas Aces are not having a good night. And I don't think that should be the thing going forward, right? I think the team needs to be more balanced, but A'ja Wilson is very talented. MVP candidate again this season, has an MVP, won it last year. So I think that if they were to go and make that trade, Yuru can really come in, help relieve some of that front court duties, like I mentioned earlier. And one thing I noticed about when they played the Valkyries really exposed them in the paint. So if she were to come in, she's tall, she can guard the paint and really protect the rim, because I think that's where teams can start to attack the Aces, is a lot of them try and get inside or get some perimeter type shots that A'ja Wilson can block, but as soon as they bring A'ja Wilson forward more towards the 3-point line or anywhere outside of the paint, they just do a backdoor cut and it's open for them. And the Aces players, they're trailing them. They're not getting the blocks in. So I think that Yuru can come in, help establish more of a presence in the paint and really hunker down defensively, because I think the offense is there for the Las Vegas Aces. I don't think they have a problem offensively. I think the problem that they're having is maybe more in transition in a settled defense, is because when they're not having a good offensive game, it does affect their game defensively, in my opinion, at least, because they kind of, I think, overexert themselves to try and make up for things. And when you overexert yourself, it kind of comes crashing down. The Aces are ranked last in assists, and I think that needs to change under Becky Hammond, because if you want to win a championship, you can't just have one player go 1v1 every time. You have to get the ball moving, because this is the professional league. Like, this doesn't get better than this. It's not like college where you can kind of have one person dominate, and maybe that person, she's scoring 40 points a night or like 39 or something like that. It just, you got to involve more people, and to get the assists going, you need to move the ball a little bit more. And if Yuru were to come in and they were to make a trade for her, she can rebound the ball. She's tall. She's not as tall as A'ja Wilson, but she is very tall. So that second chance opportunities, they're there. They just recycle the ball, maybe catch some teams out of rotation, get favorable matchups in, and they really can just establish themselves more on the offensive side because, like I said earlier, their offense isn't the problem. I think their defense is the problem. And in that loss to the Valkyries, he did not have a really particularly good second quarter. Your second quarter was very bad defensively. And once you get behind in basketball games, you can come back. I just think sometimes they just put themselves so far away from mounting a comeback. They're just using too much energy back on the offensive side. Whereas if they were a little bit more even offensively and defensively, I think they'd be a little bit better.
I do want to see Liz Kiley develop a little bit more. I was excited about her getting drafted to the Aces. I thought that was a well needed pick because they have been thin in the front court. It's just been Asia Wilson and who's who, whoever's available behind her. So that definitely needs to come up. But I'm more shocked about the backcourt. I'm more shocked about Asia Wilson's leading his team in assists, which never should be the case. Chelsea Gray and Jewel Lloyd, maybe Audrey was right about Jewel Lloyd. Like we were shocked, but she's only averaging like 9.7 points per game, and Chelsea Gray is not leading this team in assists. Maybe they're aging. Speaking on defense, defense always start with the perimeter. And, once they get past those players, then there's nobody on the back end besides Asia that can cover. And like you said, Asia is out milling with the 3-point line of perimeter. Who's going to get those boards? So I think they need to somehow fix the backcourt. Jackie Young is looking okay. She's a scoring guard. I don't look at her to be the one that pushed the envelope offensively, but something got to be done in that backcourt. And I think that's where they need to make the trade at the most. They need to bring in somebody that's like a little bit younger, maybe three or 4 years younger. They just need depth, a little bit more depth, and use their depth. I wrote down a few names. Speaking in the front court, all the names that I wrote down, they are going to be free agents in 2026. Maisha Hines Allen with the Dallas Wings. If the Dallas Wings want to continue going towards a youth movement led by Paige Beckers, they can start shedding some veterans. She's going to be a free agent. I don't think she's going to return next season. That'd be something like the Aces can go after. I'm looking at as far as guard play. I'm looking at Ariel Atkins with the Chicago Sky. We gonna talk about them in a little bit, but it's still not going anywhere for their team. I'm also looking at Brittany Sykes over there with the Washington Mystic. Even though she's playing great, having a career year, the Mystics are still going in a youth movement. They're starting all the way over, and she could be a casualty, even though I think she's a good leader for that team. And then also with the Atlanta Dream, I'm looking at Jordan Canada, who, could be on the move as well. They just need one of those players. I would for sure give Hines Allen for that front court, but they also need Atlanta backcourt play. I do think that they need to make a trade in order to keep up with the other teams. They just have been depleted. It's the curse of being a champion. You just gonna lose players to retirement. You're gonna lose players to free agency, and they're definitely missing out on Kelsey Plum, unfortunately, who would have covered a lot of things wrong with this team. But I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna be a top 4 seed at the end of the year. The only thing I'm banking on is they've been there, done that. They can turn it up in the second half of the year, while other teams they still trying to figure it out. Especially a team like the Indiana Fever, who still are trying to get used to playing winning basketball, but it's looking kind of scary for this team. Again, the 7 grades, like we talked about last week, the Sky, they're only 7 games in. So maybe things will get better and then we'll see what happens. But how do you see the Aces finishing the year? Do you see them finishing as a top 5 team, or what do you have them at right now?
To start the season, I had them probably top 3. I didn't really think that was going to be a question, but now I kind of have them circling around that 5 seed, maybe, which isn't horrible, but also middle of the pack area, I don't know. I think there's something going on in Las Vegas, and I was kind of worried coming into them that they didn't have a great off season. I didn't love some of their acquisitions in response to the departures they had. And just going back to Jewel Lloyd, it's tough coming into a new environment and trying to adapt. But I also think some of it falls on Becky Hammon. She's a great coach, but I think you have to look at your team and say, if this isn't working, I need to figure out something that's going to get them to click. So I think it's kind of like a, tug of war almost in a way where it's both parties have to come together and kind of find that middle ground. And I just don't know what's going on with the Aces right now. I think that they lack depth is probably their biggest thing because their starters, once their starters explode, the game's over. But if their starters kind of struggle to get in the game and you have people coming off the bench that can't replicate some of the same dominance or power that they have, that's where teams really get at the Aces. So because of their lack of depth right now, I'm going to put them around the 5 spot. I think they'll make the playoffs. I guarantee you they're making the playoffs. I just think it'll kind of be one of those struggle seasons, or struggle's not the right word, but it's kind of like, you kind of just go along, you face a lot of adversity, but you kind of just continue, and maybe not everything will click, but maybe that's good for them because a lot of things have clicked for them in the past. So maybe this group needs to figure out, yeah, we've been in winning situations before. Now it's time for us to see what we're really made of when we're in winning situations. But winning is not the same as it used to be because you look at the teams around them that are the favorite to win championships, and they've started the season brilliantly, right? The Lynx and the Liberty being the first two that kind of pop into my mind. And those teams have it figured out right now. And I think the Aces are kind of almost like a seesaw in a way where it's, they can have a good win. Like I thought their win against the Sparks was really good, but their other 3 wins haven't been too impressive to me. I mean, they beat the Suns. But the Suns aren't very good this season. They beat the Mystics by 3 points, I think. Not great, just because they're a younger team. And I would assume that it would take them a little bit more to click. And then they beat the Storm. And again, the Storm, not the same team like they used to be. But I think one thing that needs to be paramount for the Aces is just they can't give up. They're a very self-aware team. And I actually like how, whether it's Asia Wilson or it's Becky Hammon calling out the group saying, yeah, we didn't play better. The other team played so much better. We need to figure it out. I think that accountability is what's best in this situation because if you don't have accountability, you're not going to make it far as a team, because not everything is fine. You're not going to win every single game. But if you look from within and say, why did we lose this game? I think that's what the Aces are the best team in the league at doing, is taking what they have, looking at themselves, being like, okay, we lost because of X, Y, and Z. Let's go back out there and let's focus on that. So I think that the Aces will continue to win games, also lose some games, but I have them kind of sitting around the 5 spot. The only way I see them maybe jumping up is if they pick up, players, whether it's 10-day contracts or whether they're trading people or whether Becky Hammon or the group starts to figure out a different type of game plan. But they'll for sure make the playoffs, not worried about that. They just might not get home court advantage, which could be a huge loss.
Yeah, I think at best they're going to finish a tier below the Lynx and the Liberty. I'm starting to think that's going to be a repeat finals matchup. Yeah, the Aces just don't have enough firepower to compete with teams like that. I think they'll get together. I think they're going to hover around the 3 or the 4 seed. I'm leaning towards more the 4, but as far as being a finals contender, they're looking like it's bleak right now. It's very bleak. But let's go on to topic number 2, which concerns scheduling. Satu Sabali, the star of the Phoenix Mercury, recently criticized the commissioner about the grueling scheduling when it comes to WNBA teams, citing that the Mercury recently played 9 games in 18 days. That's a game every other day, which is going to put some wear and tear on your body, no matter how shape you in, what the condition you in. And also the Mercury been going through some injuries. I think Alyssa Thomas been out, Kalia Copper been out. Those are two of their most important players on their roster. I was looking at a game they played. They won in the end. They eked it out, but it was looking scary. They had those two players playing. They would have won that game. I forgot who they was playing. I'm blanking on it right now. I think it was the Valkyrie, but it looks like they've been a casualty of the tough scheduling. And my opinion about that is I get it if you're a player, but it's an adjustment period. You have now the WNBA teams have what, like 2 or 4 more games on their schedule now due to the Valkyrie being added. Then you're gonna add 2, 3 other franchises coming up in the next 3 or 4 years. So like it's gonna be definitely a change and it's gonna be an adjustment period. You're gonna play more games, you're gonna play back-to-backs, your schedule is gonna be grueling at some point of the season. It's just you just have to adjust and adapt. Y'all want the game to grow. You want WNBA, the organization, to grow, and which is doing. But there's just the downside of it. When you add more teams, you have more games. You have more playing days. And unfortunately, injuries going to be a part of the story. Everybody's going to be nicked up here and there. But again, you just got to adjust and adapt. Get ready for 2 more games next year. So I heard what Sabali is saying, and I do understand it. You know, players you want to put on the best performance. It's a lot of pressure on that team because you got veterans on that team that are used to winning situations and now trying to recreate that with the franchise, one of the most historic franchises in the WNBA history. But it's going to be an adjustment period that you're just going to have to get through, and it's unfortunate, but that's just how the dice roll, Miss Sabali. So sorry about that, but here we are. Kaylin, what you think about the WNBA scheduling this season? Do you think it's fair for Satu to criticize the commissioner, or do you think it's just a big adjustment period? Everybody just gonna have to roll with the punches.
I get what Satu is saying. You know, if I were an athlete, I wouldn't really want to be playing a game every other day. But I also agree with you. It has to be an adjustment period. If you want this league to continue taking off, you know, you see the viewership grow every single year. You see the capacities for these stadiums and people that fill the stands grow every single year. If you want that to continue, you have to keep adding teams. And, you know, we've seen the WNBA go from 36 games in 2022. And they went to 40 games in 2023. And I believe now they're playing 44. So it is an adjustment period and teams have to figure it out. And I understand with basketball, you have a shorter roster, a smaller size, and injuries are a little bit more common, but it has to be an adjustment period, right? And I understand Satu, you know, saying that we need to cut it down, right? Especially with the Commissioner's Cup, that's also taking away from maybe some of the regular season. But the Mercury are not the only team that are going to have struggles or that are going to have a condensed schedule. I believe the Connecticut Sun, they're going to be playing something close to like 8 games in 15 or 16 days, something similar to that later in June. And then the Aces, they're going to play a tough schedule as well in August. I believe it was 9 games in the span of 18 days, I think. So kind of similar to the Mercury as well. So yes, Satu can call out saying we need a break, but all the other teams, or at least a couple other teams, are going through this as well. If it was just the Mercury, I would say, whoa, like, hold on. Yeah, that's not fair. But I think it's a complete adjustment period. And the WNBA, it's going to continue to expand. It's going to continue to attract the top talent. And the way to kind of keep growing this league is to have more games in a longer season, because 44 games, that is a lot of games, but as an athlete, I would kind of be wanting to play as many games as possible, right? I would want to have an off season. I know some players played in Unrivaled and some go overseas, but if I was an athlete, I would want to play the most amount of games as possible. And I think part of what Sawtooth's also hinting at is just the international tournaments, you know, like I think the FIBA Women's World Cup or something for basketball. In years past, the WNBA has taken like a hiatus, and especially we saw with the Olympics, they kind of take a break. They let the athletes go do their thing, and they come back. But I just think that teams are going to have to figure out how to work their way around it, work rotations around it. Maybe, Satu, she doesn't have to play every game in that 18-day span, right? If I was a coach, I'd look at, okay, I mean, not to be rude, but I look at what are my weaker teams? Who can I play there and rest some of my stars to get that win?
Are you promoting load management right now?
I am talking about a little bit of load, man. I don't know. I mean, I understand that fans, when they come to these games, they want to see the superstars. But I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it is a lot, but there's other teams that go through it. Teams just have to figure out, kind of the adjustment and figure out the lineups and tweak a little game plan here and there. But I think the only way for the league to continue to see growth and for people, more and more fans across the world, to want to be part of the WNBA is the expansion. And everybody is on board with the expansion teams. And I really like the expansion teams. I think it makes it more of a complete league. It makes it tougher because you have some top 3 powerhouses and they can dominate the league all the time. And the other teams are not doing much, but adding more and more teams, that just heightens the competition. So teams they'll have to figure it out. I mean, we'll see what they do in the future, but I understand that's a lot and that can take a toll, especially if you don't want to get injured, because being injured in basketball, you likely will miss a large portion of games just because they come so thick and fast. People are just, they're going to have to figure it out at the end of the day.
Yeah. Miss Sabally, it's going to get worse. It is going to get worse. Like I said, they're going to bring in 3 new teams over the next 3 years, including Toronto. So that means international travel for the first time within a WNBA season. So you got that to look forward to. Also, you got the Olympics in 2028. How many games are you going to play before y'all take that break? Luckily, the Olympics will take place in the United States, in Los Angeles in particular. So you won't have to go overseas, but it's going to be an adjustment period. It's going to be a few years before you get used to the brutality of the schedule. We talking about upwards to 52, 56 games at the end of the day, by the time we reach, want to say like 2028, 2030, something like that. So I'm sorry, but it is what it is. At least you're getting a few more checks.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the way to kind of get around that is scheduling. Like, obviously, you mentioned if they want to play 9 games in 18 days, then if I was the people scheduling it, I wouldn't have them travel, from the West Coast to the East Coast back to the West Coast and kind of do that thing. If I was a scheduler, I would look, okay, if we want to have them play 9 games in 18 days, let's make a couple of them, West Coast teams so they don't have to travel so far, because I mean, you go from like Golden State Valkyries, Las Vegas Aces, and Phoenix Mercury. They're all in the vicinity of each other ish. But I think that problem lies is when you go from playing, Phoenix Mercury to maybe playing the Liberty or Atlanta Dream or, maybe Chicago Sky. That's where I think maybe she was hinting at. But yeah, like you said, it's going to get worse. So if you're a professional athlete, if you want to trailblaze and be a trailblazer in this league, you got to start figuring something out.
For sure. Now let's go to the last topic, which concerns the growth. Speaking of which, of the WNBA, for the first time in WNBA history, there was a game held at the United Center in Chicago, which features the now rivals Chicago Sky versus the Indiana Fever. Of course, Caitlin Clark didn't play because of injury, but also they didn't really sell out the United Center. But the fact that there was 2 WNBA teams on the floor at that juncture in the regular season was amazing. Kudos again to WNBA, just growing year after year, and we see they promoting some sort of, well, I don't know if it's like a playground, like a street league or something on billboards. It just look amazing. The fact that they scheduled a game to be held in United Center against like rivals that are putting butts in seats and increasing viewership for the league was a good move, even though that it didn't really go their way. But I'm just glad that, the WNBA is seeing new heights and they're taking advantage of their popularity that's growing right now. So how did you feel overall about the game being at the United Center?
I thought it was another great step in the right direction for this league. They continue to push the limit of what's possible for professional women's basketball. And you mentioned that they couldn't sell it out completely. I think the United Center, they were under some construction, so there were
Mhm.
limited tickets. And I think if that construction hadn't have happened, they probably would have been very close, if not selling out the entire center to begin with. And I just find it really interesting that this guy decided to do that game against the Fever. I sense a little bit of a rivalry between those teams starting to
No,
brew.
not since it's there.
It is there, yeah. Yeah, but I again like another great step in the right direction, and this really pushes the limit of what's possible. And I think it's also setting a precedent for other teams saying, hey, if you have a small arena with a lower capacity, maybe you start to find a different arena that has a little bit bigger capacity. I think the Atlanta Dream, they have the lowest capacity of all the arenas of the WNBA teams. I think they're at 3,500 or so.
Mm.
So I'm wondering that is this maybe a message to the teams in the league saying, almost if you build it, they will come. Like if you move your stadium to somewhere that more and more people can sit at, you can have bigger crowds every single night. And this isn't just like an anomaly. We continue to see places get sold out, more and more attendance gets shattered with each game. Even streaming networks and viewerships have gone up significantly. So I really like what the WNBA is doing. And I like how they're doing it with select teams as well. And there's a purpose in what they're doing. They're not just making it on some random night and just being like, oh, by the way, we have a game here. No, they're building it up. They want people to come to it. And basketball in the league is getting better. And that translates to more and more fans wanting to be in these arenas. So I like what the WNBA is doing right now. And I think if you are any other team, you're looking at that saying, we can do that one day or even better. And so for the teams that have lower capacities, like I said, maybe start investing in some higher venue capacities. But this just goes to show if you put trust and you invest in women's sports, this is what the outcome is going to be. And it's going to continue to happen. So I hope that this isn't just going to be one-time thing. I hope that more and more teams can start to have, games in NBA type of arenas. I mean, for me, being from Boston, I love it when the Connecticut Sun can play in the TD Garden. I think it's absolutely amazing. And I hope that other teams can kind of continue that trend as well.
Speaking of the sky, the good news is they finally got people averaging over 10 points in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it took them longer than I thought it would.
I know,
But,
right?
slowly but surely they're starting to come together.
Yeah, but the bad news is now Courtney Vandersloot will be out for the season. Angel
Yeah.
Reese is still not averaging 10 points per game. Do you
Their
think they're going to
season,
make the playoffs?
no,
Oh,
no.
man.
I thought they were going to be towards the maybe bottom half of the league again this season. I thought if they were to make playoffs, they might sneak in 7th or 8th seed.
Yeah, me too.
Now I think they're done. I don't want to say that they'll finish last, but I don't really see this team winning a lot more unless they make some significant improvements or they trade for people or bring some new bodies and new faces into the team. With Courtney Vandersloot, she was a producer, she was a veteran, she knew how to play. You lose someone like that, you kind of lose your creative outlet. It's still a very young team. So if I'm a Sky fan, yes, this season most likely is not going to be a successful season, but success doesn't, happen overnight, right? Like this team, what they have right now, I think that their GM and the people that in charge of the team They're making this team for the future. And I don't think Courtney Vandersloot was really going to be part of that long-term future. Now with her injury, it's almost, I don't want to say she's going to retire, but she's just getting closer to retirement more and more now. So they still have a young team. So I think what Tyler Marsh needs to do is just get his squad together and say, it's going to be a struggle. We know that, but think long-term. And I think that's what they're trying to do because they have the talent that's right there. Rookies are in this team. You got Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, still very young to this league. You have a good core group. I just think that they're just going to need to struggle this season, and maybe next season, when they have more games under their belt, more chemistry, is when they'll go and take off. But yeah, if I'm a Sky fan, this season they're not going to do well this season. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the only thing they can do right now as like an immediate Band-Aid, so to speak, is play Haley Van Lith more. Which she will play more because of Vandersloot, but I thought she should have played more minutes anyway. But now they get to, like you said, build with the big three kind of core, Van Lith, Reese, and Cardoso, and see what they got going towards 2026. But that was the end of the Around the W episode 3 of the second season of this show dedicated to women's basketball in the WNBA. I am your host, Stacey Carter II, joined by Kaylin McDonough. Follow Stacey on Sports on Instagram at Stacey on Sports. And Kaylin, where can we follow you at on your personal pages?
On Instagram, you can follow me at Caitlin A. McDonough. And I said this last time, I'll say it again. Twitter, Caitlin McDonough, Noah. It's my tag phrase. I gotta go with it every time.
Yeah. I love it. But until next time, keep watching WNBA. We are headed towards the summertime, and I'm pretty sure it's going to continue to heat up, continue to rise. See y'all next time.